keep it alive. Through these lines I write, I keep it live cause I thrive. I might just blow your mind tonight. I'm so hyped, but it's no hype. From this height, it's direct hits on sight. I'm your type, lend me your ears to show you that there's something in me. I'm not giving up, I'm standing right here, holding these days hostage. And I'll make this my year. We turning fear into love, and the love's in the air. I love doing this cause nothing compares. Nothing can share that same type of feeling when you feeling them flares. They can't catch it, it's havoc. I rip to a tear, switch the scenario. My stereos, I leave them impaired. Variables start to change and they're all in my range. I just gotta grab it, it's all mathematics. Every step is drastic, I make it fantastic. I'm trying to take your breath away. Asthmatic.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo.
Yeah, just nod your head with it, so explicit and vivid. Every image is intricate, intimate. I put my all into it, no scrimmage and no rules. I'm a pro tool, hear my heartbeat, beat into the vocals. I'm so loco, lost my mind, oh no. It's ponderoso, dope, so no overdose, cause it's dope, yo. Man, this is house grown, mixed with some milestones. So I let the style flow down like the Dow Jones, bringing it with some foul tones, letting the crowd know we getting loud, so it's eardrum rudiments. Yeah, we bring it rude again. Move, little hooligan. Music for tuning in, full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursuing.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anti-Media Radio Show, once again with your host, Nick Bernabe, here on UCY.tv and the antimedia.org/radio. Thank you all for tuning in, and I'm really happy to be back, and I'm so glad to be alive, obviously, and a lot of things happening, and my longtime co-host, DB Schwartz, I'm glad you're still alive, man. You survived the DNC. What happened over there, man? Tell us about it.
Yeah, dude, just couldn't make a call in really Wednesday. I guess they have a new frontier of electronic detainment that they tried out on us, and it apparently worked really well. And essentially how it works is if you go to a protest and you don't severely outnumber law enforcement, in other words, if there's maybe less than 500 of you and there's, 100 cops, they'll surround you kind of passively. They won't let you leave the grounds, and then what they do is they stingray you and jam you. And for all I know, read you too. So I'm kind of glad that I have some shielded casing and other things like that, because a lot of people were saying their phones were getting messed with at the same time. And we're sitting there and they don't let us leave until the protest is over. This was all happening in an FDR park, ironically enough, where we see the death of the Democratic Party for all traditional purposes, and a splitting of it for sure. But what you'll see now is the primary's rigged, because there's no way Hillary can win legitimately, because she split her own party. So
You mean the general election, right? Not the primary.
right, the primaries were definitely rigged.
That's
already
the primary
conclusive.
was rigged. I mean, we had already suspected it. We had already seen it with the media. There was some leaks that came out kind of before the most recent DNC WikiLeaks that showed that there was like collaboration between the media and the DNC. But now the recent emails show that there was like direct manipulation of the primary in favor of Hillary Clinton against Bernie Sanders. So I mean, we already know what's happening. So you think you think she's gonna have to cheat to win the general as well?
Well, what's gonna happen is he's gonna start throwing it. So his last interview on ABC came off as really an out-of-touch buffoon. He's going to just continue to make himself worse and worse. Pence was a pick because Pence is a weak pick. Nobody wants a guy that's that conservative anymore in the U.S. So, yeah, he's gonna flop. He's gonna give it to her. You know, there's probably going to be some third-party action, I would guess, coming out of this, that maybe the next time around. But, I mean, are we going to even get that chance? That's the problem.
I got a siren in the background here. Give me a second to let this thing pass.
Yeah, I mean, what I can say, though, is that you have a such a split, such a rift. I mean, we could go on about the DNC. You should probably ask me questions so I can verify if rumors were true, because yes, there was a mass exodus and walkout after Bernie gave his speech day 2. Yes, day 3 and 4 featured actors that were paid. It featured white noise machines. It featured green screen seating, which was actually defeated day 4 by the remaining delegates for Bernie by wearing, I guess, these neon green shirts that they couldn't black them out. And they turned the lights off on them, too. So, I mean, every dirty trick you can imagine, from the Maoist Hillary T-shirts they were selling and the Jew Rat Bernie T-shirts they were selling there. I kid you not, that was all real. That was very real. You had security guards roughly handling people that were elderly and disabled to move them out of the way of Hillary if they were not specifically Hillary delegates, meaning if you had a bottom seat and you were sitting even with your state and you were the wrong kind of delegate, you were basically removed by force and thrown into the upper stands where they could block you out or black you out or whatever they did. And the most surreal thing, honestly, was that balloon drop, dude. I mean, I kind of felt like they sprayed some kind of aerosol chemical into the air, because I was feeling kind of giddy watching those balloons come down. And I have to say, man, like, I felt pretty drugged during that last couple hours.
That's crazy, because if you look at, did you see that GIF about Hillary's reaction when the balloons came down?
Oh yeah, I mean, dude, it was weird, man. I don't know what kind of stuff they're trying out, but it was legit.
Maybe it was the helium, and then Bill Clinton was just having a ball with those balloons, man. He was playing with those things like a little 5-year-old kid would be.
And he was asleep the majority of the time. And the funniest thing was that the camera in stadium was panning around to try to show celebrities. So they'd show people in the stands. Inevitably, they'd show like Katy Perry, and you'd hear the boos in the stadium. When you go watch it on TV, they're replaced with cheers and stuff, because they were jacking with the audio. They were putting in audio tracks, even live, because they have it all on a delay. They were able to do it that well.
So I saw a very interesting. I guess it was like a memo circulating around, and it was to DNC pro Hillary DNC attendees, and it was kind of the counter chants to because the Bernie Sanders people inside they had chants put together.
Absolutely true.
They had certain chants, and then there was counter chants within the convention from the Hillary people, which outnumbered the Bernie people by a good amount. It was
2-1 or 3-1 by day 3.
And the one I found most ironic was, and this is where I was very critical of Bernie Sanders throughout the whole primary process, was on foreign policy. But obviously, some of his delegates are anti-war activists, and there was a chant, including when Leon Panetta was speaking, where they said no. They were like chanting, "No more war, no more war," and the counter chant from the Hillary people was "USA." USA, to like overpower the no more war people. I mean, I found that very, very ironic coming from the Democratic Party.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny because that was day 4, and they drowned out no more war with USA. And I started looking around and realized that, except for the way that the people are essentially lying to themselves, the ardent Hillary supporters, they are neocons. Okay, they can hide behind the fact that they feel, for the most part, the same way the Trump supporters do, but they just won't come out in public and say it. And you can believe that they're absolutely the same bias and racism. And man, just going out to bars, Nick, after these things and listening to especially the young Hillary delegates, these people have such disdain for what they call POCs, and you're going to hear a lot about that coming up. POCs is people of color, and that's a nomenclature they throw for anybody that's not a white, typical Democrat.
Yeah.
Sounds like a Scientology phrase or something.
That's what it's devolved into, man. This cult of Hillary is Scientology.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think the mainstream Hillary supporters, it's not that they are by ideology neocons, but that they've just come to accept it and kind of embrace it, I think. Because a lot of these people were, they were people back in 2008 that were critical of Bush's foreign policy, and they thought it was destructive because that was what their party was telling them to think. I think a lot of these people don't really have principles to stand on. They kind of just go with what their party tells them to go with. But if you look at Hillary's foreign policy, I mean, the most recent big thing that I saw on Hillary is that she basically, and it's even in the Democratic Party, is she's saying that in the Democratic platform, she's saying that regime change is basically a must in Syria, and we all know that that's big trouble when it comes to the world peace, because that's a head-on collision with Russia and the Eastern Bloc and all that kind of thing. But yeah, the Democratic Party on foreign policy has become the neocons, and they basically agree with the the Republican establishment on economics.
They follow the American sniper doctrine that everyone is our enemy and we're simply bombing children so we can be safe.
That's true, man. And the other thing is that, I was under the impression that nationalism was going to be the new tactic for the Republican Party, but I was wrong on that. It's the tactic now for both parties. They're both forming under a nationalistic kind of ideology, except the only difference really is that the Democrats are socially tolerant to, gay marriage.
But they're not.
They're right.
All these WikiLeaks are showing that they absolutely hold them in putrid contempt. I mean, this new WikiLeak that came out today where they were comparing Pride to a pedophilia organization, these things are going to come out, man. They're as bad, if not worse, than the Republican side.
Well, in rhetoric, the Democrats are the socially acceptable neocons at this point. And then on economics, I mean, the mainstream Democratic Party and the mainstream Republican Party, they kind of agree on for the most part, everything. If you look at who's supporting the TPP, I mean, it's Obama who's at the head of the Democratic Party.
It's Gary Johnson.
He's the highest-ranking member of the Democratic Party. Obama's for it. And then if you look at the main supporters in the legislature, it's the Republicans. I mean, this is a bipartisan trade agreement. It's opposed by activists and people who have actually understanding and have read what the TPP is all about. People like that oppose it, but everyone else, including most mainstream Hillary Clinton supporters, are just basically like, I'll do whatever the hell my party tells me to do. If Clinton gets elected and she changes her mind and decides to support the TPP, and keep in mind, if you guys listen to our last show on Wednesday, I played a clip where Hillary Clinton talks about the TPP as the golden standard of trade agreements, and she was in favor of this thing. She's on record saying that she's in favor of the TPP at least like 30-something times. As soon as Bernie Sanders started running against the TPP and criticizing it, Hillary Clinton changed her tune and said, "Oh yeah, I'm against the TPP." We all know that Hillary Clinton, if she's elected, is probably going to pass the TPP. And keep in mind that this is, like I said, backed by the majority of Republicans in Congress, and they're the main power pushing it besides Obama. So, this is a bipartisan agreement, at least when it comes from the establishment politics on economics, and bipartisan agreement when it comes to foreign policy. If you look at the Bush Doctrine and the way that Obama basically continued it, Clinton is now openly running on a much more hawkish platform than Obama ran on. Obama ran on a very, very, non-interventionist foreign policy. He said he was going to end the war in Afghanistan. He said he was going to end the war in Iraq. I mean, Obama ran on like, hey, maybe it's not a good idea to be in all these wars. Clinton is openly running like, hey, we're going to overthrow the government of Syria. We're going to confront Russia head on. I stand by my decision to overthrow the government of Libya. No one even asked her about her involvement in the Honduran coup, so she got a pass on that. I mean, Clinton is the most hawkish candidate out there, and then therefore she's moving the Democratic Party in the direction of extreme hawkishness. DB, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you're just saying things that we know. Her own diehard supporters don't know or don't admit to know or will just put the blinders on to these things. When I talk to people and tell them that she's actually probably more dangerous than Trump because she said she'd go after Iran. She said she'd install a no-fly zone in Syria. She even said that she would be hard on Russia, which we already are. We're already sanctioning the hell out of them, and then we stop because it hurts our economy. And then we start again and we stop. So it's all a big game. But her really ardent supporters do not know these things or will not accept them. I told a group of people, you guys seen Clinton Cash? And they're all, what's that? And I'm all, yeah, it was on for free on Breitbart.com. They're all, oh, Breitbart? Well, we would never go to that shit site. The blinders are on full.
Exactly. And then, the problem is that Breitbart will go ahead and expose Hillary Clinton, but then they turn a blind eye to Trump and what he says. You know what I mean? So so many partisan things going on with the media and with the complete narrative going on right now. And DB, I agree with you. I think Clinton, and you guys all know I have some kind of personal vendetta against Clinton, and I'm not alone. Julian Assange feels the same way as I do. I think she is more dangerous than Trump only because she has a proven track record of doing the horrible things that we think that she may do. Trump is very, very bad, and in fact, I think they're almost equally bad. But his faults are only in rhetoric. He's only said that he's going to do a bunch of bad things. Clinton has already proven herself to be capable of doing them. She's already done many of these things. The blood on Clinton's hands is up into the hundreds of thousands of people dead, at least. Trump has only said a bunch of bad things, and I'm sure there's been several killings in the United States against Muslims and against Mexicans that have been inspired by Trump. But that's only maybe a couple dozen people dead because of Trump. Clinton has a couple 100,000 people dead on her hands. You know what I mean? So for that fact alone, she's slightly more dangerous. Now, the reason the Democrats come off as more palatable right now is because their rhetoric is so much softer. They're not like, oh, we're going to ban Muslims and we're going to do this and that and we're going to build a big border. Instead, it's like, oh, no, I passed NAFTA, which was horrible against Mexicans. I bombed a bunch of Middle Eastern countries. I helped destabilize the entire Middle East, which was horrible for Muslims. In 2015, of course, Clinton has been out of the Obama administration for a while now. But in 2015, Obama dropped 25,000 bombs in Muslim-majority countries. If you want to talk about anti-Muslim policies, look no further than Obama, and Clinton is only going to either carry on what he's doing or escalate what he's doing, and that's not a good thing. Now, I think Trump would continue doing the same exact thing. Don't get me wrong. Trump would continue doing the same exact thing. But it's not fair to allow Clinton to escape as she's the one that's going to be good to Muslims. She's going to treat Muslims well. She's going to make them have a good life. No. She's been horrible to Muslims. She's been horrible to women overseas. She's been horrible to people in Latin America where she's backed a military coup and regime change and all kinds of things like that. Each of these candidates, either Trump in rhetoric or Clinton in action, equally bad. Equally bad, in my opinion. DB, I want to move on to this big story here that I wrote today. But first, do you want to tell us anything else about the DNC, man? Because that was a huge, huge thing. I know one thing that I noticed was that the media was really censoring the anti-Hillary movement that was within the DNC, the Burn Your Bus movement, all the protests outside. I saw this hilarious video by Lee Camp yesterday that was, for a brief moment, CNN was showing the protesters outside of the convention for 20 seconds. And they're like, sorry, man, we got to cut from this video to bring you Boys to Men because Boys to Men was performing inside the DNC. And it's like, who the hell gives a shit about Boys to Men? Anyway, DB, before we move on, anything else you want to tell us about what happened at the DNC?
There's a lot of things you can go look up and see a lot of Periscope videos and stuff like that. So you can make your own opinion about what happened. Most of the rumors that are floating around probably have a pretty strong grain of truth to them. So I would just say this, man. Before I went to this, I was a staunch, at least liberal/progressive supporter for the most part. I would have never, ever, ever considered Trump to be less of a threat than Hillary. But after seeing the way that this whole thing went down, where it was basically a police state with a interior Gestapo within the Wells Fargo Center there, that I think she's imminently more dangerous because of what she'll be allowed to get away with, particularly because she's a woman, unfortunately. And I think that she'll get a pass starting a huge war because she got a pass putting things that were of national security risk on a server that was probably hacked, and she probably let it be hacked. And I'm sure she was paid by Russia and China and whoever else. So if you want to get into a major world conflict with us significantly weaker than we've been on purpose, then she's your gal.
So one last thing I want to ask you, because the Democrats have made a big thing about Trump's wall, and it's a huge topic, and everybody's talking about Trump wanting to build a wall and stuff. But correct me if I'm wrong, but did the Democratic Party not have a massive wall and several security perimeters around the DNC?
Absolutely, and that's actually going to bring up a good story, which is I was actually mistakenly identified as one of the people that the cops thought was a cop that was a provocateur. So that was kind of an interesting experience where I got pulled aside by a cop, and he said, "Oh, that's not him." And then they went and grabbed a guy that was trying to start some shit and threw him into a police van. And I can only figure that guy was a cop himself. So they had every dirty trick from every DNC before from 68. And it all went down, man. And it was 10 times worse than you could imagine. They totally whitewashed it on all the mainstream media, made it appear like people there were genuine supporters. They were paid. And didn't cover a massive protest that went up and down the street all day and night until 4 a.m. all 4 days. And how they split the party, and they really did. There are no new Democratic Party people coming out of that DNC, I can tell you that.
Crazy, man. Crazy stuff. Yeah, and, this whole thing about building walls around your convention, I mean, you don't got to build walls around things unless you give people a reason to want to get in uninvited or without permission. And the Democrats have given people plenty of reason to protest. And that's why there were so many people outside the DNC protesting, and that's why the media didn't cover it, and that's why they had to build a huge wall around it, because people are fed up with the DNC. And correct me if I'm wrong again, it wasn't a bunch of Republicans out there protesting the DNC, was it? It was a bunch of actual progressives and Bernie Sanders supporters and in general leftists, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it was a big group. It was a lot. Believe it or not, there was a lot of what people would call fiscally conservative people that kind of want smaller government, but they're totally fine with being completely open with all the societal issues. They're not, anti-gay or anti any religion. They don't want to build walls. They just want smaller government and less tax, therefore less safety net and services. Generally kind of older liberals, That's what we see. They kind of morph into that. So it was a big group. I didn't meet a single Trump supporter there at all. There was none of that presence. It was just a rift. It was like forever the DNC's been, at least on paper, progressive. This proves that they're just another arm of the neocon party. That's what it is now. It's a two-headed hydra. It's the neocon party. The neocon party, the only thing they care about is war. War drives our economy and puts profit in the pockets of the people that matter. So war is their national policy. It doesn't matter if it's RNC or DNC.
Exactly.
So you can vote for either one and lie to yourself if you support Hillary and think she's any better. And she's more likely to start a war with a nuclear superpower than even Trump. Because I think even though Trump is a moron, he'll never get the wall built because nobody will support him in either House or Senate. So I don't think we need to worry too much about him except for his ideas. His ideas are more dangerous than him. And in a way, maybe his ideas getting out into the open will draw these people out. And maybe we can deal with some long buried issues we've never dealt with. Maybe we can use Trump for a 4-year term and heal all these rifts in our society that are all bullshit and divide and conquer. Get him the hell out and vote somebody in that actually will do the job the next time and not have a nuclear war. That's what I'm hoping for.
Oh, we all have hopes, right? That's a decent hope to have. So my story today on the anti-media, and actually first I want to go over to Jake. I mean, Jake, what do you make of the whole DNC debacle and what went on over there? Because it is a huge topic, and really the thing that sticks out to me is that the most of the opposition to the DNC, as DB was saying, comes from the left. It's not like they're building a wall to keep out the Trump supporters or to keep out the Republicans because they're going to come disrupt the place. I mean, the Democrats have made most of their enemies are on the left, it seems like.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think he's right. I mean, there's a huge rift, and it's become clear, people who, like myself, who voted for Obama in 2008, have now realized that there's been a fusion, and that really there's just this national security state at this point, and it doesn't matter if it's a Republican or Democrat at the helm. It's people people spurring geopolitical events to line the pockets of defense contractors, and that's our economy, and that's the global situation, and it doesn't matter who's president. That's what's going to be happening. And Hillary is maybe just a little more professional about it. Maybe she knows the handlers a little bit better than Trump. Maybe she's a little bit more finessed at how to speak. But besides for a couple of different identity politics issues, they really are incredibly similar. And what's so aggravating to me, and it's why I've had to get off Facebook, is my liberal Democratic friends who just cannot seem to understand that there's a difference between rhetoric and action, and then there's similarities between them. This idea that Hillary is more tolerant of Muslim Americans while she's simultaneously supporting policies that are killing them is just beyond the pale of cognitive dissonance, to a point where I almost can't listen to someone speak who can't seem to put those together, because there's just an Orwellian disconnect there to not be able to understand that it doesn't matter if someone's rhetorically tolerant of someone else, if behind the scenes they're creating policy that is killing people. And yeah, I agree with everything both of you have said so far, and I to some extent I agree with DB that it almost is more. I mean, I couldn't tell you that if I were forced to choose between the two, I can't honestly say that I would pick Trump. But in my heart, I can really see how Clinton is actually more dangerous, because she'll get away with more, like DB said, and it will continue to cover up the war crimes that have been going on, and Democrats are able to get away with that. They always have been, and this election, I think, is a way to finally pull the mask off of this two-headed monster, and we're seeing the blowback. We're seeing the resistance in full scale. Their resistance to people who are against that, and it's interesting.
Great point. Go ahead, DB.
Jake, I just wanted to say the thing that is swaying me to vote Jill, just because I can't in my heart vote Hillary, and therefore would by default kind of be supporting a Trump thing, is Trump will allow us to clear the forest, dude. I know it sounds shitty in a way because it's like a Civil War type action, and maybe they'll even use that for martial law. But we gotta get, these racist, sexist, just fucking stupid fucking, dude, just to not get just going on a rant, but people need to be exposed for being the fucking shitbags they are. So we can deal with this as a society and shame people into actually facing themselves and what they are and how they grew up, and get rid of all this crap, man. Or we're just going to keep fighting forever, and they're going to keep just stomping us down with their boots till we're all poor. We don't want to become the third world country here.
Right. Well, at the core of it, I think it's hatred, but hatred disguised as racism is blind hatred, in which you're angry but you don't know why. And for many in America, it's economic disparity, and so they're covering their hatred and their fear with a specific target. Whereas the other hatred, the real hatred, is one of of power, and that's what's being used by the elites. It's a hatred that's disguised and used as a form of power and overreach. And which is more dangerous? I can't honestly say that I believe that a racist who's living in the woods with a shotgun with a Confederate flag up, I'm not sure that person's more dangerous than a socially tolerant liberal sitting in the White House with a neoconservative viewpoint.
I guess it just depends. Do we want to fight it out between ourselves, or do we want to invite a global type of conflict where me and you maybe get drafted or some stupid shit like that happens?
There's always the third option about of neither, right?
But then neither means kind of like vamoosing.
Well, we'll talk about it right now. I want to make one final comment on this, and going back to what Jake was saying, if you look back at like the Bush Doctrine and the foreign policy, the perpetual war on terror, and you look at the end of Bush's term, and it's like, oh man, this guy, there's huge popular opinion that was like, man, this guy's foreign policy is shit. He's dragged us into all these wars. I mean, even people before we found out for sure that we were lied to in Iraq, there was plenty of people coming from the left that were saying, look, they bullshitted us on Iraq, like we shouldn't have gone in there and stuff. So, Bush took heavy criticism for his foreign policy, especially towards the end of his term after the whole 9/11 patriotism stuff kind of wore off. But Obama came into office, and at first it looked like he was going to start reeling that stuff back, and it looked like he was going to end the war in Iraq and that he was going to end the war in Afghanistan and stuff. But that actually, the Afghanistan war never ended, and the Iraq war, it ended briefly, supposedly, and now it's like restarted. But Obama has got basically zero opposition except for anyone that's, except for the fringes like us, like the activists, the alternative media, the people that are actually really willing to criticize both parties. That's the only source of opposition, and that's not nearly enough to oppose the political establishment. I mean, back during the end of the Bush term, I mean, the New York Times, the Washington Post, all of the TV, the TV news outlets, except for Fox News, were like criticizing this guy. And then Obama comes in, and it's like, okay, we're not going to say anything about Obama's foreign policy. Every now and then they'll report on a big drone strike that killed a bunch of civilians. They briefly reported on the fact that Obama, under the Obama administration, we bombed Doctors Without Borders hospital in Afghanistan and in Yemen. That stuff is briefly talked about, but there's no major opposition from anyone in the mainstream, including political and media establishment, that is willing to oppose Obama's foreign policy, even though it's almost identical to the Bush doctrine foreign policy that was heavily opposed at the end of his term. And for that, that's why Clinton is somewhat more dangerous than Trump, is because Clinton would be able to continue the Bush doctrine without being opposed from the left or the right, while Trump would be able to continue the Bush doctrine with opposition from the left only. So like he would still have the support from the right if he were to continue all these wars and stuff. But at least the people on the left would say, oh no, we can't have these wars going on because Republican wars are bad. Democrat wars are good because they're for freedom and they're for democracy. But Republican wars, they're bad. They're for oil. They're for greed. And so that one little tidbit there is, well, that and the fact that Donald Trump is solely being judged on his rhetoric, and Clinton we could judge her on her actions. Those two things basically is what gives me the impression that Clinton is more dangerous than Trump, even though it's a much more quiet danger. Trump, it's like loud, it's in your face. It's like, yeah, we're going to ban Muslims, we're going to kick all the Mexicans out and stuff. It's like in your face. It's like, yeah, those are really bad ideas. With Clinton, it's like quietly dangerous, and that to me is worse.
What I just want to say though is you got to find the tape of her saying we would go after Iran because they're a national security threat to Israel. And she fully says that, man. And if anybody knows anything about where the world's resources flow from, it's the Strait of Hormuz. And if you take on Iran, they just shut that down. And overnight gas prices would triple because that's where all the East Coast gets their crude. So we'd have to basically start trucking it in from everywhere else to the East Coast. I mean, can you imagine? They spread the pain. So there's $5 and $6 a gallon right there overnight. I mean, do people want to see the end of our economy right away? There you go.
Not good. Not good at all. So I want to move on a little bit here. It's still kind of related. I wrote an article today on the Anti-Media. It's our top story of the day. The New York Times just accidentally proved U.S. elections are illegitimate. Now, this is an opinion piece, so I mean, this is my opinion. But basically, the New York Times gathered up some statistics, made a great infographic article about this. I have it linked in my article. Now, be careful because the link keeps on messing up. But
was it an intern or a robot? I mean, was the person high that did this?
Basically, what the New York Times reported today is that only 9% of the country voted for Trump and Clinton. 9% of the country voted for Trump and Clinton. Let that sink in a little bit for a few seconds here. Because this, in my opinion, renders the entire primary election and further on in the article, even the general election, renders them illegitimate because we live in a supposed democratic republic or whatever you want to call it, constitutional republic. I mean, whatever you want to really call this. I mean, we all know it's not exactly republic or it's not representative, and it's sure as hell not a democracy.
Doesn't this report prove it's a plutocracy by proxy? Because if only 9% of the people are actually coming to vote regularly and controlling all the elections and donating to these candidates and going to these delegate meetings like I have been and fundraisers and stuff like that where people get all connected and start running for rep seats where they make 86 grand a year just doing nothing. I mean, you get swept into the machine, dude. It's a plutocracy by proxy.
Yeah, dude, exactly. So, I mean, this is pretty much a huge bombshell. And if you only count eligible voters, because the 9% number includes children and felons and stuff, but if you only include eligible voters, 14% of people voted for Trump and Hillary, of eligible voters voted for Trump and Hillary in the primaries, which means Clinton got like 8% of the eligible voters' votes, and Trump got like 6%-ish. And somehow we're supposed to believe that it's okay that only 6% of people voted for Trump and that he's going to, very likely be our next president. Like somehow we're supposed to be okay with this. And this is what my whole article is about how this fact that we have such a small amount of participation in the voting system, it actually renders our elections illegitimate, because if you don't have more than half of eligible people voting for the particular person that wins, then in my opinion, it's not valid, because you should have that amount of people engaged and believing in that person for them to be able to rule. If we're talking about democracy, that person should get at least 51% of the eligible voters so that they can say, okay, now I have a mandate to tell everyone else what to do and pass all the laws and veto all the laws or do whatever it is that these lawmakers do.
It's crazy how much power delegates have, Nick. When you're talking to some guy that's just not really that bright, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm a delegate for 13,000 constituents." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Your voice is 13,000 people, and you're just a moron." And there was a bunch of these morons I kept running into in these bars. Now, given they were heavily intoxicated sometimes, but still, these people were drinking the Kool-Aid fully, and they were speaking for tens of thousands of people.
But here's what makes it even worse. So this guy, for instance, the guy you're talking about, he's got 13,000 constituents, but only 14% of the people of that constituency, on average, voted, and of those 14%, only about half of them actually voted for the guy that he's representing. You see what I'm saying here? So, like, he's supposedly representing 13,000 people. 14% of people voted. To make it easy, let's just say 10,000. So he's representing 10,000 people. He was only voted. Only 1,400 people actually cast their vote, And of those 1,400, only 700 voted for him. And those 700 people give him the authority to say, I speak for 10,000 people. That's crazy. That's insane. It's ridiculous, in my opinion.
And there's not really a vetting process. It's not like these people need a college degree or something. I mean, these are regular people that are kind of charismatic, and they just got involved because, for whatever reason, this election cycle galvanized them, and they see Trump as the great devil of the candidates, and there's this, just completely clean, and they have no clue.
Exactly. And, there was one case of one of Trump's delegates was actually a guy that was in the KKK, like active member, and so there is no vetting process.
Well, yeah, there was a guy there was a Hillary delegate I met he's a Black Panther. Like, I'm like, what alternative universe does this presidential candidate help your cause? And he couldn't give me any straight answer.
So this New York Times analysis today even got the attention of Edward Snowden. He tweeted out, today's paper, an unintentional reminder to look at third-party candidates like Governor Johnson or Dr. Jill Stein. So Edward Snowden, man, I can't help but just lay praise on this guy. He's just been the most intelligent and well-spoken whistleblower and dissident that America has seen in a long time. But, now he's openly pulling for people to look. He's not, picking sides. He's not endorsed a candidate. But he's openly saying, look, you guys need to look at third parties because only 9% of the population chose Trump and Hillary. That's obviously a sign that you guys should look for alternatives here. But, yeah, I mean, this number is just crazy. But I broke it down a little further because I was looking back at the 2012 election between between Obama and Mitt Romney, and back then, and keep in mind, historically speaking, more people vote in the general election. Like, more people don't give a shit about the primaries, but in the general election, 51.1% of people voted for Obama in the popular vote compared to 47.2% for Mitt Romney, but only 57.5% of the eligible voting population actually voted, which means that Obama only got literally 29% of the votes of eligible voters. And again, it goes back to my main point here that there is not a mandate. There's not a majority-derived mandate. And if there's not, there should be some kind of coalition government or, okay, we're going to share the power because nobody got a clear majority. But that's not how the United States works because it's a winner-take-all type of system, which basically silences. Obama got 29%, so 71% of everybody else that didn't vote for Obama, they're all silenced. Their voices don't matter. Their votes don't matter. Nobody gives a shit what they have to say because Obama was elected by his 29%, and he gets to tell the other 71% of people that they have to sign up for Obamacare, or that they have to pay for the war in Syria, or that they have to pay for overthrowing the government of Libya, or, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. 29% of people get to tell everybody else what to do. That, in my opinion, is illegitimate. That is not a mandate. That means that we're not living under any semblance of a democratic society. We're living under what I refer to here as a basically rule of the minority or tyranny of the minority, where 29% of people get to tell everybody else what to do. And so that just throws out any principles that have to do with democracy and all that. Throw that out the window because we don't have that no more. And then the other idea here, and I got several rebuttals on my comment sections, like, we don't have a democracy, we have a constitutional republic, and we elect people and they represent us and they do what we tell them. Now the problem with that argument is that it's just simply not true. As we recently reported, there was a study out of Cambridge University that basically indicated that the United States is an oligarchy. It's not a democratic republic. It's not a constitutional republic. It's not a democracy. It's an oligarchy because according to the research, and they analyzed almost 2,000 pieces of legislation that was passed, and they found, and I quote, economic elites and organized groups representing business interests have substantial independent impacts on U.S. government policy, while average citizens and mass-based interest groups have little or no independent influence. So, you know, you can't really argue that, oh, well, it's not a democracy. We shouldn't have to have a majority rule and all that. It's like, okay, well then, if you're going to say that, then let's hope that we actually have a constitutional republic where the people we elect to represent us actually, you know, speak our voices for them, and we put our power in them and they do what we want. That's not the case. I mean, the fact of the matter is that the people that do get elected, they don't do what we tell them. They do whatever the people with money and influence and power, they do what they tell them. You know,
Nick, I met a guy from a group called Black Guns Matter when I was there, and he was telling me that we're at an impasse, we're at a stalemate right now with the government, where we're so heavily armed, and there's so many. He said there's so many fighting age men still in the country that they really can't fathom or afford to devote any resources to trying to overtly, you know, come out and force fascism on us. They have to kind of keep this soft play going, is what he was saying, and they can't take us on at the same time they would be able to take on like Russia or China or even continue these proxy wars. So we're at this constant stalemate. But what he was saying Hillary was going to try to do coming in was say that the UN Small Arms Treaty now applies to the United States and ratify it, and basically make the cops come and take everyone's firearms, essentially. Now, there was going to be one way, he said, you can get around that, which would be to register your firearm to your LLC. So you can see where this TPP corporatism, imagine this future, Nick. You own a company, right? Or you have an LLC, and I do too. And if we make enough money and pay our taxes on that LLC, we can legally own guns because we have something to fight for in their eyes. See, we're part of the system. That's what it's coming to.
Crazy times, and I haven't gone too far into the gun debate, but it's always something to think about because guns matter to a lot of people, and they're very concerned about their gun rights. And like you said, man, I mean, there's a lot of fighting age males that have guns. Now, the other scenario to think about, and this comes from the more Trump angle here, is that why take the guns and to put fascism on us when you can just convince all these people that fascism is a good thing? And that's
or let them fight each other.
And that's kind of what's going on with Trump. It's like, hey guys, look, fascism can really work out here. Use your guns to help us create this, make America great again. Use your guns to turn it against your neighbor. That's how we make it great.
Create your own prison.
Yeah, dude. And that you already see that kind of stuff happening. I see it all the time on Facebook. I mean, I get banned every other day on Facebook, and it's from self-censorship. It's people that follow our page that get too offended because we say something bad about Trump or we say something bad about Clinton, and it's like, oh, we need to censor these people. It's not necessarily the NSA or the government coming along to our Facebook page and saying, oh, we can't allow the anti-media to post this information. It's too dangerous. It's people within our own following that are so offended by stuff we say that they censor it themselves. Community censorship. And I wouldn't be surprised if we had community-oriented fascism under Trump. Not a good plan, not a good idea. But you know what? It's already happening. I mean, we're gonna have to see the extent of it and see how this election plays out. But the final argument I make here in this article of mine, first of all, is that voting third party, and DB, you actually kind of briefly said something about this. Voting third party is not a vote for Trump, and it's not a vote for Clinton. Voting third party is actually more effective, in my opinion, than voting for either one of these two candidates, even if you think that the biggest thing you can do right now is stop Trump or to stop Clinton. Voting for either one of them doesn't really matter because, as I mentioned in the article here, the oligarchy is going to continue, and they're going to do whatever, and the lawmakers, the Congress people, they're going to continue on. Business is normal. They're going to continue their wars. They're going to continue their deficit spending. They're going to continue taxing you and slowly reducing your freedoms. Doesn't matter which figurehead becomes president, really. So, voting third party is, in my opinion, more effective than casting a vote against Trump or against Clinton, because what you're saying with either, and this also includes not voting at all, by either not voting or not voting for either one of the two main candidates, you're withdrawing your consent. You're not, basically what you're not doing is signing a contract saying, look, I'm signing off on this, and this person can do whatever I want, whatever they want, and they're speaking for me. By voting third party or not voting at all, you're saying I'm not consenting. I do not.
It's crazy. It's crazy you just said contract, Nick, because if you research voting law, that's indeed what it becomes when they try to ratify war in a legal sense, where the Senate can say, you know what, I have 100 and something million Americans behind this. And all 525 members, and we're going to go ahead and go with it. And this is what it would take to declare a war. It would be a draft type situation, because you knew going in and signed up and said this candidate is okay with you, and they already said we are going to institute a draft for chicks too, so we can kill the next generation of females.
Exactly.
I mean, what does that do to the country?
When you vote for one of these two characters, whether it be Clinton or Trump, you're signing off on what they do. If you vote for Hillary Clinton and if she gets into office and she starts a big war with Russia because she wants to put a regime change in Syria, you're signing off on that, and therefore that blood is on your hands in a way. And if you vote for Trump and he starts banning Muslims and he starts deporting a bunch of people, that blood is on your hands as well. You know what I'm saying? And so it's more, in my opinion, both for your conscience and literally just on paper.
And they can look back at that and see what you voted. Think about that too, peoples. I mean, has anyone not heard of Pol Pot?
Jake, go ahead, man. What were you going to say?
What do you guys think of Assange may have new emails coming out that shows the sale of weapons to the jihadists going through Syria and Libya, and that could be coming up in the next batch of emails being released. Do you think that would do anything?
If they can correlate that Benghazi happened because Stevens was a good man and those SEALs were good men and found out they were running guns to the enemy through their own base, and that they were set up to silence them, something like that, where it turned all the special forces against the current situation, the administration. I mean, when you lose the special forces, this is where internal change happens, that overnight somebody gets put in, like President Biden. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, that's the thing, is that a lot of this stuff, Jake, it's already kind of been pieced together. If you look at, what's his name, Simon Hirsch, I think his name is. He's a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist. He already put together all this, what's called a rat line, which was the smuggling of weapons through Benghazi into Libya to help fuel the civil war over there under Clinton's watch. I mean, Hirsch already put this stuff together, and this guy, a very credible investigative journalist. But it hasn't changed the support for Clinton. And I'll tell you what, the Republican establishment, which is the one that's been leading the charge against Clinton and the whole quote-unquote investigation of Benghazi, they're not going to look into the covert weapons operations. They want these wars to continue. They want to funnel weapons through Libya into Syria. And so as DB was mentioning, I think the only thing that'll happen is like internal people within the actual special ops people that are in there fighting. They're knowing that they're being misled. They find out, and maybe they become whistleblowers and stuff. But we'll see any official response. There won't be any official investigation. And in fact, judging by the reaction to what went on with the DNC leaks, I mean, I wrote about this at the end of last week. The FBI started up an investigation about the DNC leaks, but rather than looking at like, oh shit, the DNC was like rigging the election against Bernie Sanders, it's like, that's not the investigation. The investigation is, hey, let's find out if Russia actually conducted these leaks. It's like, misdirection, dude, and that's what'll happen if we find out that Clinton is tied in with this rat line from Libya to Syria.
It's the Zionist media, brother. I mean, look at the Dallas shootings, and when they don't even talk about what kind of rifle he used. You know what I'm saying? That's the power of the media.
Yeah,
They
he's
sit
using
and
a.
talk about he had a bomb for a couple of days. They never brought up what kind of gun he used because they knew there was a bunch of snipers at first, man. It's absolutely ridiculous. And then you have another shooting a couple weeks later, or actually a couple of days later it was, I believe, in Germany or Paris. I mean, goddamn, there's one every day now, man. It's going crazy these days.
So we got a couple callers on the line, and caller from 636, thank you for joining us. And yeah, you make a great point. The guy was using an antique SKS rifle. It's not the quote-unquote assault rifle. It's not an AR-15. It doesn't really fit the narrative of the anti-gun people. I mean, this thing's like an antique, and he was still able to gun down 4 people. It kind of just goes to show, 4 cops, I mean, it just goes to show that, you know, if someone is hell bent on killing people, they're going to take care of. They're going to do it whether they got guns or whether, like you said, in Nice in France, it was just a truck that somebody hijacked or rented or had or whatever, and they killed, you know, almost 100 people with that. And so, if someone is mentally ill or someone is brainwashed into killing a bunch of people, which is either, you know, that's the case. If someone is a murderer, they've either got mental illness or they've been brainwashed into killing somebody, whether it's religious or other means of brainwashing. You know, there's no denying that someone that's a killer is either mentally ill or brainwashed. Or, you know, the other thing is like a crime of passion where someone kills someone for something that, you know, they're heartbroken about or something, which is, you know, normally just one person or 2 people. But these mass killings I'm talking about, someone that's sick in the head or someone that's been brainwashed into thinking that it's the right thing to do, you know, when they're hell-bent on killing people, they're going to do it whether they've got an AR-15 or a .22 pistol or a axe or a sword or a knife. I mean, in England, they're dealing with this problem of knife attacks because in England, you know, guns have been banned for a long time and there's not as many guns on the street. But they have so many knife attacks, people getting stabbed and killed with a knife, that now they're actually talking about knife control in England. I mean, so, you know, regardless of the weapon used, people that are sick in the head or have their motives for killing people, they're going to find a way to do it no matter what.
Yeah, the FBI preys on them, these type of weak-minded people, man. They used to frame Muslims and stuff like that, giving them weapons and stuff, these mentally unstable people. And once, right before they're about to commit the terror attacks, they'd stop them and be like, hey, look, we're stopping terrorists, y'all. You know what I'm saying? And then you got Zionist plan, take over America, take over the Middle East, man. Elders Protocol of Zion, brother. It's a very, very good book. You all should read it.
Interesting call, man. We'll look into that. Thank you for calling in, dude. We got to move on to the next caller here. We got another caller on the line from 323 area code. How's it going? You're on the anti-media. What do you want to talk about?
Hey now, how's it going?
Hey, what's up, Patty? How you doing?
I just wanted to just call in real quick and let people know that there's just a lot of people here in LA who are just tired of the LAPD killing so many people, and so there's a big movement right now to get Chief Beck fired. So basically, the plan right now is to, since the police commission isn't going to do anything about it, they're going after Mayor Garcetti, and people are calling the mayor and demanding that he fire Chief Beck. And, you know, he's going to be up for election next year, so people are putting a lot of pressure on him. And, yeah, I've had articles on the media about that today, so people can go there and check that out and get all the information on how. And there's also a petition, and you can, you know, you can call anytime and leave a message and fill up that voicemail, and that would be awesome.
Patty, people may know you better by your alias online, which is PM Beers. Tell us about why you want Chief Beck to be fired and why activists are calling for his resignation. Oh, sorry, we're out of time. Sorry, I don't mean to ask you a question and then cut you off. Thank you all for tuning in.
Hey now.
I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.